All right, so I guess we're ready to start. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yay. It seems like we just met yesterday.
I know.
I wanted to address something that was brought to the table last week. I just want to clarify some things. There was some issues over comp time, and I was told, oh, we're violating FLSA. So I went and pulled the statute, and we're talking about, I think it's 29 CFR, and we have section 553.23. And it talks about having an agreement or understanding prior to the performance of work. So if you want to use, having some agreement to use comp time in lieu of overtime, we have to have an agreement prior to the performance of work, which is kind of what we have in the collective bargaining agreement, and we're trying to clean that up now. So we're already in compliance with that piece because we do have an agreement. In that subsection A, then in section 553.24, I believe that was the section that was being read off. It talks about the 480 hours of comp time. That's a max. It's not a minimum. It's a max. You cannot earn more than 480. So it doesn't mean that what we're doing is incorrect. What we're doing is perfectly acceptable within the law. If we said you could have 500, that would be a violation of the law. Yes. The other thing I thought was interesting when you get to 553.25, that's the conditions for use of comp time. That it has to be, we have to permit it to be used within a reasonable period after making the request, so long as it doesn't unduly disrupt the operations of the district. But it goes into in C what reasonable period talks about, and it talks about emergency requirements for staff and services and the availability of qualified substitute staff. So that's why we put the restrictions that we are, so that we can have the emergency requirements, because we're required in Marjorie Stoneman Douglas to have an officer on every campus, and the availability of qualified substitute staff. So those are the two reasons on a reasonable period that we could delay it, but having it done within a quarter would meet this definition. So we aren't violating FLSA.
Well,
I just want to make that clear for the
How
record.
far in advance do you request your use of comp time?
We're told to do it a week in advance.
So you should be able to know if you can, get a replacement for them.
Forgive me if I'm wrong, the way the statute reads is, it has to cause an unduly disruption
You have to read them in conjunction with each other. You can't just read a statute in isolation, particularly FLSA. You'd have to look under this whole chapter, which is 553. Under FLSA, there's a lot of provisions to it. So it defines, yes, it has to be where it's not unduly disrupted.
To the
then
department, though.
But then it goes into the next section where it talks about, well, what does a reasonable period mean? And so the reasonable period, I read that to you in C and D. It talks about the, the emergencies, which,
Right.
Emergency services, we would need emergency requirements, which is Marjorie Stoneman Douglas having the officer on every campus, and the availability of qualified substitute staff. So whether we have whether we can find an officer in a week is really going to depend upon whether we have availability. So
Right, so
I just wanted to bring up, because it was alleged that we were violating FLSA. I want to make it clear that we are not.
I don't think he was alleging
No,
that.
no,
I
I-
think
no.
that he just is saying.
I was just
if
reading
you
that,
have a
that
reasonable-
statement about the unduly disrupt, because and I understand having the replacement, I've been doing this for years, just like yourself, is that the argument would be that we would always have a replacement. For example, all of us are here today, they had to replace us today, and we gave them adequate notice.
Right.
The only time it wouldn't be adequate notice would be, God forbid, there's an emergency, that wouldn't even fall under comp time. So I actually would think that management would rather not have us use it quarterly, because there's some of us that just put it there just in case of emergency, or we're knowing we're going somewhere in the springtime. Like, I know things I might have to go see my son in college that I want to build my time up now to use.
You can already get someone to cover for you.
Yeah, and
So
me
it's not
personally,
unduly disrupting.
I put it in it for literally months, when I say months in advance, because I know that I'm going to use it for a particular thing. That's why I save my money and my time. And I believe Alex is the same, and Mike. I don't want to
Right.
put words in your mouth, but we planned ahead.
I don't have your proposal in front of me, but I think it was just like a blanket, you can't use it on holidays. Is that-
We can't use it, it's the same language we use for other contracts using personal leave and using comp.
training.
For if we're using other contracts, some of the contracts, if the earned comp time, they're only allowed to use it on non-student attendance days. We can't do that for your unit, because then the only time you'd be allowed to use it would be during training days, and you have to be in trainings. So that's why, we didn't put that language in there. But using comp time in conjunction with, some type of sick leave, a holiday, right before the breaks, those are the times that we really need all our staff on deck. And so we have restrictions, the use of personal days for that time as well. So we just wanted to include that.
Well, I just wanted to mention that, I know New York City Police Department has this clause that they have that during certain times of, like demonstrations and things like that, only like 2% of the department can take off.
Yeah, that percentage is right.
So instead of saying nobody can take off during before or after a holiday, nobody can take off during training, there's got to be, it would benefit everybody, both sides, to have a percentage of how many people can take off.
And again, this is negotiation, so I think we can move around the holidays and breaks, but we can't on training because there's so many requirements coming down on you guys right now that to allow comp time during the trainings, the officers are going to have to make that training up some other time. And I see Officer Lynch shaking his head. I know that there's, there's some,
I think all of us agree with that.
okay, because there's some new stuff that just came in too.
Let me give you this little scenario, and my own personal. I took no time off, but I had surgery during the summer on my own time. I have to do another surgery, and I'm taking 2 days off prior to Thanksgiving, but I'm doing it so I can be back the following week after
Understood.
Thanksgiving. So I know the amount of days I'm taking off. So I'm trying to do it responsibly, so it's gonna be the less amount of time. But if I'm gonna have to burn my own sick time like that, then I'm just gonna do it when it's at my convenience. Because I'm losing the plus on the other end of having a perfect attendance.
Understood. So, that's something we can, like I said, we can move on that. It's just the trainings that I don't think we can move on.
I don't think any of us disagree with you on that.
Okay. Well,
Could I just say something with regard to the holidays? The challenge is not so much what you guys are talking about. The challenge is if we go to a certain level and then we have call-outs because people didn't put in for time but want to take a day off, that creates a huge burden, right? So it's also managing that because that happens all the time. And that's, not just your membership, but other employees also do that. That's a bad practice, and it takes advantage of those who are complying and using the procedures appropriately. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So we also have to compensate for that. I just wanted to put that in there.
I appreciate that. So if you wanted to provide, I just wanted to get that out of the way because I just felt that was kind of looming over us from last time, and I wanted to address that. So if Ms. Mendoza, you have some proposals to give to us today, we're ready to
Okay.
hear them.
No, because we really honestly didn't have time to
Okay.
talk about anything in depth.
So what we did was we went back and looked and made movement where we could, so we can pass these out.
Okay. With the TAs?
Yeah, when they're separated out, so we can just, if we TA them, we can both agree. We put, at the bottom, we have the date, TA on the date, and PBA and district. Not that we're convinced we're going to get TAs on everything today, but anything we can both initial it, and then that can be the record so that we have those done.
Thank you.
I think we're going to go caucus.
Okay.
And we'll talk about it.
Okay, that's good.
Bring this with us, right?
For the TAs proposed today, and we TA'd Article 6, 8, and I added 4 after adequate time just for grammatical reasons.
On which one?
8.3, I said the chief shall allow for adequate time for those officers.
Okay.
And then, so 6, 8, 10, we TA'd that, 12, no. 17, we left it open.
Hold on, I'm signing these as we go, so you've signed off on 8,
Yes,
okay, and 10,
And you said 8.
okay,
and not 12,
not 12, okay.
not 17.
Didn't you say 6 also?
And then 18, I think we could TA today, but we just wanted to clarify with the COVID. So if they get COVID and they haven't yet used those 10 days, they would get to use the 10 days
Through September 30th, yes.
through September 30th?
Yes.
Okay. Is that's what's in the COVID policies, but do you guys, did you know about that deadline for September 30th?
I knew about it, yeah.
Yeah, the federal government is allowing us to extend that through September 30th. It is a federal, remember they had the FFCRA leave in the beginning?
Right, but you
And
could go
one-
past that, right?
Right, well, once that expired, they told us, okay, you can extend it to this date, and then you can extend it to this date. The date they've allowed us to extend it to now is September 30th.
Okay.
Question was on the presumption, though. I think we had a question on that, presumption.
Well, I think that would be, you can ask, but I think that would be more so workers' comp.
Yeah, that presumption notice that Laura, I don't know if it was Laura, noticed that they came out with first responders that presumed to have caught it during the course of their duties. Is
And that's statutory. Once a vaccine is available, that presumption is no longer there.
But right now, in practice, if one of them gets COVID and they haven't yet used those 10 days, you
Well,
would allow them to
That's different.
go.
The work comp, like line of duty leave or whatever, that's completely different. They're still entitled to use the 10 days paid that the district has agreed to extend through September 30th if they haven't used it yet. It's a one-time leave. If maybe they were exposed and they used 5 days, they've used the leave.
Right, so does that answer?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think we can go ahead and TA 18 then.
Okay,
And then,
hold on, we need to print that out so it's a separate document, 'cause right now it's front and back. Okay. All right.
and I'll do that right now.
Well, Katie, what we'll do is we'll print that out as a separate document, because I see like 18 bleeds into,
Oh, because they're front and back.
yeah, they're
Okay.
front and back when we printed them, so we'll print out a separate copy of just 18.
Okay. And then 20 we're leaving open.
Okay? Just so we know, what's the remaining issue in 20, so we can bring it up?
I think there's multiple,
Okay,
yeah. And then 26, we can TA the grievance procedure.
okay.
28, we're leaving open because we're still concerned about the definition really of the workday. Because I see you got rid of 13, but then you're changing the definition of non-contract day.
Hold on, let me see.
Which one? Are you up there?
We're on 28.1, the definitions. Oh, yeah, I figured we'd go back through and talk
Okay.
about the open ones.
Okay.
Yeah, we had, on contract day, you said any weekday, we just said any day when police officers are not regularly scheduled to work. Because I thought that's what you had asked for in 10B.
No, I don't think I changed the definition of 10B.
But that doesn't really mean anything if the schedule is changed. If somebody says, okay, now you're supposed to work Tuesday through Saturday.
Okay,
That's, I think, where the issue is. Instead of a Monday through Friday or a Monday through Thursday, depending on the hours.
okay.
Those are our common, normal work days.
Yeah, I changed the definition of 10C just to include the counting. So I guess I shouldn't have taken out the definition of working day because changing B really changed the definition of working day. And then we TA'd 29.
I know where you're going, where the work week is back there.
Mouse
That's, we had talked about that being Saturday to Friday. I know what you're saying on that, for pay periods
Pay
only.
period, yeah.
Right. That's what we had been, because
Yeah,
we took
but
that
we were-
out
we-
because you had asked for it, and then we found out at the last bargaining session that wasn't what you wanted, so we took it back out again.
No, that's not a problem, that you're
Okay.
taking that out, because we do know what the work week is, but we want to specify our work days then are Monday through Friday or Monday through Thursday. This is for pay period, this is for pay only, this work week. Our issue is with the way it was labeled as, or you said there was a concern from people that they didn't know when their work weeks were,
Right.
and we clarified that they do because it's clarified every 2 weeks to us. And then actually we get a thing that's printed out that says this is your work week and your pay periods. Our concern now is this way our schedules don't get changed, so all of a sudden now we're working Sunday through Thursday.
And that's my bad. I probably shouldn't have taken out the definition of working day, but I just thought it was understood that it was, it would be as practice, that definition, any day of the week excluding weekends and holidays.
Okay, so are you TAing 29 for progressive discipline?
Yes.
Okay. And then 30, I'm assuming, because I think we had agreed to
Yes, and
TA.
30.
And what we'll do is we'll print out separate sections of these so they're not front and back.
Okay. And then the grievance form is good with us as well.
Okay. But the salary minimum and maximum, you're not okay with?
I think we're fine with the 2.5 and 3.5, right, guys? But we just didn't, we have other questions on the 20.
Okay. All right.
So now it's just 12.
So I think we TA'd 6, 8, 10, 18, 26, 29, and 31.
Okay.
It's just 12, 17.
What we'll do is when we finish today, if you don't mind waiting around a minute, we'll go and print them out so that we have 2 clean copies of just those articles.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay.
17 and 20.
Okay, so I don't know if you want to just talk about 17 and 20, because those seem to be the biggest.
Okay.
So for 17.1C, again, with the accumulated comp time, I think that we would be happy with raising the 16 to 24 and not, because you have such hours are limited to code 9004, so we wouldn't want it to be limited to 9004, because speaking to the guys and the members, I just think that, it's very rare that they get 9004 unless you're in a specific position or spot. So that would be, our counter to that. And I don't know if they were mentioning a concern with the leases. So I don't know if that would, make you guys more willing to change it. Because really, then we would just be raising it by 8 hours. So one day, and then we would like it. And then for D, all bargaining unit members may use comp time up to a maximum of 8 hours per day up to the calendar year. So, and then you guys added, employees must make a written request at least 1 week prior to the date of intended use. And then I think that they had a question, because E says, then all bargaining unit members shall meet with their supervisors to schedule and use comp time quarterly. So I don't know,
Right, the usage, like we had said, the usage is we want them to use it quarterly. So whatever they've accumulated by the quarter is what they would then use. It may not be within that quarter, because like if you realize you get some overtime or comp time the day before the quarter ends, you obviously can't use it the next day because of the other provisions. So this is just basically saying we expect it to be used in a reasonable period so that it's not being held over all year long.
okay.
I want to just bring up the fact that, I don't know if you're aware of it, but that's going to cause the officers to take more comp time off during the school year.
Yeah.
Because correct, Chief?
Yeah, but there's also the balance between, we have training outside the school year that we need to accommodate as well. So the hope here is that we can smooth out that peak during the entire year, so we can have an even flow. And we don't have to deal with everybody taking comp time.
It wouldn't be,
We don't have to take comp time during the summer break.
it wouldn't smooth out anything as far as I could see, because it's reoccurring. So you'll still be able to build up to 24 hours again. And at the end of the year, I could still have the 24 hours. So now you're forcing officers to take more time off during the year, which you said it contradicts what the school district's trying to do with giving comp, the school police. you're forcing us to use it, so now once I use it, now I have to build up another 20.
No, that's not true, because it's an annual reoccurring maximum. It's not 20 hours per quarter, it's 20 hours, or what, if you, we gave
So
you
you
what you asked
changed
for,
it to
24.
annual?
It's there already. It's a time up to an annual recurring maximum of, we had 20, you want 24, say it's 24, so up to an annual recurring maximum of 24 hours. You still have that max of 24, it's not per quarter, it's annual.
I think what Alex is saying, and this, even as I'm putting on my management hat, I wouldn't like this because, I'll just use Chief for example, I put time on the books, again, which I do for, to go see my son in the springtime in college, right? And I build that time up and I let it sit there to the springtime. And I always put in for months in advance, but like if I start doing that now, the way this reads is I have to take it off use that time in the first quarter, so I'm really being absent from work when I had no intention of being absent from work.
I think the intent was that you, if you're planning on using it, that you meet with your supervisor and you explain to them, I'm looking to use it during this period, so that the organization knows when you're anticipating using it.
Okay. If that verbiage could be put in here, because the way it's stating now
It's
is
stating now
is
you have
that
to
like,
take
you
it,
know,
yeah.
I have to use it within the quarter, and I have no intention of doing so. And I think it's, you know, the comp time is what people build up, because they already know for something that they have to do in the future. It's not like I'm taking, you know, building up 8 hours of comp time to go to the beach, you know what I'm trying to say? It's for a personal intention or an event that they have to go to.
Yeah, so maybe just
It's-
take
it-
out quarterly.
Forgive me if I'm wrong.
It's possible we could, let me hear what else we have in 17 and see where we are, and maybe that's something that, you know,
But-
we could do, but if
Did-
there's
did-
something else you need in 17, that we may not be able to do, so let me just hear what rest of 17.
Did I understand you wrong when you said that up to a maximum annual of 20 hours, so in the whole year?
Right,
Once you
'cause-
hit your 20 hours, you can't reoccur it?
Correct.
You
That's
get
the
that,
way it is right
Kevin?
now. It says in the contract, we didn't add that language, that's the
It's
language
already
you
had
currently
before
have.
reoccurring.
It's an annual recurring maximum, and right now it's 16 in the contract. We were gonna increase that, so you had more opportunities, along with creating you'd use 8 hours rather than 3. So we've made that movement, but the annual has been in the contract. That's not something we're adding
Yeah,
now.
that was this.
You can still.
So that would go over to the next year, is that how that's been? And that's just the max?
Yeah, but I think I think she's reading it wrong, or I'm understanding it wrong, that from what she's saying, no, you can't replenish it.
That's the max.
No, I think, if I may, Vicky, the way you had conveyed it is that once you reach that level, that's it. But the verbiage in here is reoccurring, means you can continue. Here, say if we went
Right,
with
but-
it 20 hours, you're taking 8 hours off of you for
You're
12.
asking if it transfers over to the next year? and
No, I'm
that's
just,
just-
I think what Alex was, you can keep going back up there, you can add
Correct, but
that.
she's saying, no, you can't.
Yes, right, exactly, yeah.
So I don't know if she meant it
That's-
wrong,
I don't-
or I understood
that's
it
what you had
wrong.
said.
Let me I'll talk to AC Weiner when we get a chance on this issue,
Okay.
because,
Is
you know,
there-
again, we take our direction from the chief, so we'll talk to him about that and what your concern is.
Yeah, the reoccurring, when it was added to the contract and the practice it replaced was that I have 20 hours this week. So if you forced me to use my 20 hours by quarterly, I'd have to use it all, so which would mean 24 hours, whatever it is. I'd have to take 3 days off for every 3 months, whether I wanted to or not. And then I build up another 24 hours, so the next 3 months, I'll have to use it again.
Understood, so like I said, I'll talk to the chief.
Okay. And then we had a question too. Well, the guys, we were talking about it, and I think there's some people who are on call and it's not voluntary. So I don't know, is that just detectives or?
It seems to be a detective thing. The department put out another email stating that bunch of, you have the email, or, yeah, I want to
That
read
they
it.
have to be on call. It lists like specific people who actually have to be
Yeah,
on call.
had Detective Barrios on call, I believe what you had.
I'll pull it up, I sent it to all of them. Let's see. Okay, detective on call list. Okay, so, the department, right after, or maybe before we had that conversation, put out another email detective on call list, please allow 15 minutes for a callback, and it says August 13th to August 20th, Detective Supervisor Lockhart is on call. August 20th to August 27th, Detective Ken Henry is on call. August 27th, and it goes all the way to October, it covers all the way to October 15th. Every week or two, there's a different detective that's assigned to on-call status and off-duty hours.
Every 6 weeks.
And it's only 1 week per month?
Yeah.
What?
Is it only 1 week per month?
Every 6 weeks. it was
Every, I
expanded.
don't know, from August 27th.
The individual
to
gets it every 6 weeks, yeah.
Every 6 weeks?
Yeah.
Okay. So,
So
I
maybe-
think that, I think you were misinformed when you were told that this department doesn't put guys on call. It does. And this has been a common practice for years already. I'd say at least 2 years, two or more, that I've been aware of. So, without any compensation at all.
And if it's only
Well,
1 week?
They get paid when they get called in, though.
Correct, they get paid on
So
the
it's
actual.
not, it's not,
But
it's
you
not
still- but-
accurate to say they're not getting any compensation, because that sounds like we're making them work without
Well,
getting
if you
paid.
don't get a call, if they don't get called in, then they don't get any compensation. But they still had to be on call, so they had to be available. You know, they had to be available. They couldn't go away for the weekend or anything, because they were assigned these weeks. So,
And on other contracts, we do have, compensation if you're on call regularly and it's not voluntary. So I don't know if it has to be $200 if it's just a week every 6 weeks, but, something would be.
All right, thank you.
And then, so we did want something added for that concern we had about the outside details being canceled without notice. So I don't know if it's just some kind of process like you were proposing last time, but something needs to be in here, for them to, have some kind of recourse if that happens to them.
Do you have a proposal for that language?
No, I didn't today, but I don't know if you want to talk more about what you, because I didn't really get the ins and outs of what you were saying last time. Were you just saying that, basically you would send a memo to the school?
Right, the chief is going to send a memo out to the school to let them know that they have a responsibility to notify the officer, and if not, then they can be on the hook for paying the officer. The officer would then, if they get into that situation, they would talk to their supervisor. Their supervisor would then call the regional superintendent, and they would work that out. But we agree, if the school has an obligation to, notify you, and they're already being paid for that lease, then the money's already there to pay the officer. So we just need to clarify that.
but if the leasee pulled out with ample time, the school reimburses the leasee.
Correct.
If the school forgot to tell the officer that they canceled that lease,
Either
now
way,
the
there
burden
needs
is
to
on
be-
the school to pay the officer. So the way you just said it, though, as long as they collect the money from the lease, they will pay, they should pay the officer, but sometimes the miscommunication happens on the school part, too. So we just want some type of clarification in the contract that the officers will be compensated, no matter whose fault it was, as long as it wasn't the officer's fault, that the officer will be compensated a minimum of 3 hours.
In 2 hours, they should be told, at 2 hours, so. Okay, so those were our main, and 17.1, I'm sorry, we skipped that, so I don't know if that's the same as what you had last week, but they still wanted it to match the general order. Sector zone and all officers,
Now, where are you looking? 17.1 what?
1-0.
Oh, 17.10 then. Okay. Okay, I thought we had fixed that, but we'll check it.
I don't have that one. Almost screwed up.
Probably because it's not in color. Okay.
But as it was explained to us, generally the practice is the contract changes and then the general order changes versus changing the contract to reflect the general order. So, because the general order can change at any time. So-
Right, but they just got together and decided this process, I think, this year.
Yes, yeah, I'm using the word general, I think it was an operation order, and actually in it, it states that in agreement with, it was signed by Chief Kitzrow, I'm paraphrasing, with the management team of the school police department and the PBA has come up with the following process. Because I brought it to his attention that what they were doing by creating the sectors is not aligned with the contract, so, and then chief was not aware of that and immediately changed it to reflect the present state of the school police right now.
Okay, is there anything else in 17?
Well, the rate of outside details, we had that to raise that to 40 for 17.11.
Right, so if we were to do that, again, because we're now into a different budget year, the money had already been budgeted in alignment, so we would have to take money out of the money that we've already budgeted, which means it comes out of the raise somewhere in order to raise that amount at this point. We don't have any additional funds to add to this contract.
A lease is paid by the leasee, and the amount that the district charges for the actual 1 hour per officer is a lot greater than 40, so when it's not coming out of the school district budget. This is something that's being paid for separately by an outside vendor or person. So it's not actually going to affect the budget.
Well, it depends, because leases are being, I had asked about that, about some of the things that you wanted in the lease agreements, like the cancellation and all that. We talked to them, leases are not like all signed in August for the school year. They're signed throughout the year.
Right.
And some of them are multi-year. So there may be language in some of the leases that would not allow for that at this point. So we would have to start changing the leases as they're signed now,
Right,
and
going forward.
then go in to do something else to pay the officers. Because if the amount that's in a lease that was maybe executed, I don't know how many years ago, that they have a longer lease rather than an annual lease, then, you know, we have to go back and change that lease. And so it's wait till that one comes up. So there, it's not, I had hoped that there was a time period where like all the leases have to be signed by this date for the school year, but that's not the case. They're signed throughout the school year. So we'd have to have a longer runway to change stuff that's in the lease.
But
Do
the
we
hour,
know when that would expire, when most of them expire? Do we have the dates?
We have 180 locations. They have, a lot of them have their own leases. I don't have that information. I'm sure that our leasing department has a list of every lease we have, if you wanted to make a public records for that, of when they expire and when they don't. I don't know if they keep it in that format. You know, I don't know if they have like a big spreadsheet that has that all that on it. I'm not, that's entirely out of my swim lane, so.
I don't understand what that would affect the hourly rate for those leases that require an officer or a custodian. The hourly rate of what the school district charges for the officer or for the custodian, that hourly rate shouldn't be changed.
Well, you'd have, again, we have a contract with people. So if you have a binding contract with somebody, we can't go and, say, well, you know, we agreed to pay police officers more if their contract wouldn't allow for that. So we would have to go and change that contract when it expires and they re-up it. So it would be on a go forward, and that's why I say I need a longer runway. If we're doing something different that would require lease changes, and I haven't seen all the leases, they're generally standard, but some of them may be a lot older if they're multi-year leases, and we just roll them over year after year.
But even if they're older leases, the amount that the district charge per hour for the hourly rate is still way greater than $40. That's what I don't understand.
Well, I can't speak to every lease we have in the district. That's what I'm talking about. We'd have to go in and have the leasing department look at every single lease that we have throughout the district and see if that is true. So like I said, we need a longer runway to do that. We can't just make the change and impact the lessees.
So there's no set amount that if a lease...
There isn't a standard lease agreement, but again, we have 180 schools.
She's saying they all differ.
Some of them can differ,
So-
they can.
The price can't differ
Right.
for
The
the
price
actual...
can differ, they do give discounts for certain organizations, like the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, Boys and Girls Clubs. So there's a lot into that where the leases are, so we can talk about it, but not to get an agreement today or this month. It is a much longer process with at least a year or so lead time so that they can change the leases if needed as they expire.
And maybe we could propose language saying that once we get this information, it could be a possible reopener, depending on the expiration of the lease date. so. Okay. And then, so they added the study committee, so we'll talk about that.
They don't renew a lease every year, so they can just back, I mean,
That's, again, it's
Yeah.
not my swim lane. I don't do leases. We have a whole department that does
no,
leases.
no, I'm just throwing it out there. just
Yeah,
from a
my
business
assumption is
standpoint.
that they're every year, but I think there
I
are
would
some
assume
that
that
have
too.
multi-year leases, that we have multi-year for organizations that use our school every single year, year in, year out. So I can't
I
speak
agree
to
with
that.
that, and it's just a renew, just a thing, but when a new person's coming in now, they're signing a new, I get all of that.
Right.
But they do, I'm sure they have to sign it every year, though.
Yeah, so I'll
Again, I
request the
don't know that,
expiration
I don't
dates.
know that, that's not my area of expertise.
Yeah, we'll get the information. Okay. And then with the wheel, are you guys fine with this?
Tracking 17.4.
Yeah,
14?
the
Okay.
joint study committee. So it says the parties agree to establish a joint study committee comprised of 3 appointees from each party to meet, to study, and make suggestions for a rotating seniority wheel to be used for the assignment of overtime. The joint committee's report will be an item subject to negotiation at the next round of negotiations. This committee will sunset on June 30th, 2022. So I think that process is good. And I know that there was some back and forth last time about having it in the contract versus a general order, but are you guys fine with this language? And I think it really is just hammering out what's already in practice,
That's what I mean, yeah.
so, okay.
That was my whole argument. We already negotiated that.
Okay, so I think we'd be fine with that. And then, so 18 we TA'd, and then if you want to talk about 20.
Is there anything, I'm sorry, going back to 17.4, is there anything saying that, because what if the joint study committee can't come to an agreement, so it just gets bypassed?
Then it gets, they bring the fact that they couldn't come to an agreement to the table, and we continue to negotiate it.
Okay. Even after the contract is closed, we can continue to negotiate something?
No, but if you think about it right now, we're going to reopen, we could
Right.
reopen in a month or two for next year already. So it is in your best interest to get that committee moving and come up with a reasonable
Well, we-
proposal to the chief. And then I don't, he's not, adverse to coming up with a system and putting it down in writing so it's cemented and concrete. We just need to make sure that, this committee, and you guys can drive that, of getting the committee to meet frequently, so that when the next time you're at the table with the district, then you guys would have that, here's what the committee report is. You don't have to wait until June 22nd, or June of
Right.
22 to come up with a solution. You could come up with a solution 3 weeks from now.
Okay, do you want to talk about 20?
Sure.
What page is that? Because my paper's all out of order now.
It's 27, Alex, page 27 is where it
Thank you.
starts for us.
And I don't know if we'll get to it today, but I just wanted to be clear that we still are proposing the workers' comp article.
Okay. And that's kind of a non-starter for us. The law is what it is on work comp, and it's not a good idea to put that in the contract, that could end up providing more rights than the law requires, or less rights than the law
Are
requires.
you talking about, well, one of.
Having a whole article on work comp, I mean, we have statutory language, there's a whole process on workers' comp outside of the district. They have their own
There's-
court and everything, so it
There's
doesn't
two
make sense.
sections. So the first one is that sick leave can be used to cover salary portions which are not covered by workers' comp up to the employee's regular base rate of pay. So basically, you're supplementing your workers' comp with sick time. We have this in a lot of contracts, and it doesn't really hurt the district at all.
And that actually may be in our policy somewhere, we'll look that up.
And yeah, and 31.3 in our proposal, that's out of the CTA. So employees who are physically assaulted while in their performance of their duties, who find it necessary to initiate a workers' comp claim, and such assault claim can be verified by the school police. Such employees shall have their health insurance coverage at the time of the assault continued at the full expense of the district until one of the following conditions is met. So they return to work, the workers' comp claim is settled, or the employee is placed on permanent disability.
Understood. Our work comp provider is not interested in adding this language, so I'm not sure how much traction we can get with this, because it's
Okay.
really not up to the chief on that issue. That's up to risk management.
But it is still in, the teachers get this.
It's possible that they get it. If it's in their contract, it's in their contract. But, I ran this by our director of risk management, and I was told no.
And they're more likely to get physically assaulted in the performance of their duties. So,
I don't know if I would agree with that one, but.
the officers.
The officers. Again, I don't know that either teachers or the officers are more or less likely to get assaulted, so.
Okay, well, we're leaving that there. And so for 20.3, canine handlers, so why, why did you guys propose the $15 an hour?
Because that's the minimum wage that the state is moving towards, is a $15 per hour range. The district has been moving incrementally towards that. This job is completely different than the job that they have as a police officer. This is the payment they get for care and maintenance of a dog, of a canine. So, paying somebody their hourly rate as a 20 or 30-year officer for what it is a canine, and I'm not trying to belittle what they're doing, but the feeding, walking, brushing, bathing a dog is very different. So it made sense to us to have it as a minimum wage job. It's either the state minimum wage or $15 per hour, whichever is greater.
But they're entitled to overtime if they go over their limit.
Correct. So these hours are built into their regular hours. So as they move forward, if when they hit the 40 hours we have this with other jobs, there's a rate and calculation for how they do overtime when you have multiple jobs, and this is basically like a second job. So that where the overtime rate hits while you're working for the district is where that overtime money would come.
I don't think it's a second job, though. I think it would be included in, extra time for
It
what
would
they
be
do.
how we code it, and at the rate of pay of which, we have people who work, let's say it was trying to think of a position like that. We may have somebody who is a custodian during the day, but has a job in the afternoon program, the after-school program as a after-school counselor, and those are two jobs within the district. And we've had that even in the legal department. This is a better example probably. We had a secretary working for us in the legal department who also worked a secretarial job at night at one of the adult community ed schools. So when she get over 40 hours, her 40 hours would actually hit on her secretary job in the legal department. So they kept calculating of how many hours they're working, including that night job, and this is an hour and a half a day. So when they get to 40 hours, the overtime hits in for any jobs that they're performing after that 40 hours. So part of it would be in their regular duty, part of it will be in their maintenance and care of the animal duty.
So you're saying it's not included in the overtime for their
No, it is included
job-
in the overtime. That's
for their
exactly.
job here? Because
Okay, so let me explain it
you're
one more
saying
time.
it's a separate job.
It is a separate job, but because you're working for, the FLSA requires, because you're working for the district, you're still working for us. Because otherwise, we could say, okay, this teacher, she's teaching half day, or teachers aren't a good example, but a police officer, you're working half the day at this school, and the other half is at this school, so that we could somehow manipulate overtime. We don't do that, and the law doesn't allow for that. They're working for the district, so when you put that hour and a half every day, so they're working 9.5 hours today, they're working 9.5 hours tomorrow, they're working 9.5 every day. So then when you hit the 40 hours, any job that you're working after that 40-hour increment is OT, whether it's being paid at their regular rate for their job at the school or for the care and maintenance of the dog. So I work, let's say it falls on a Thursday night, the Thursday job, at Thursday I've hit 40 hours. It's probably earlier than that. Midway through Thursday, I've hit 40 hours. The rest of the workday, as the police officer on the campus for the 40 hours, is paid at time and a half. The hour and a half for care and maintenance of the dog is paid at time and a half. The pay on Friday for their regular rate would be, so we just calculate how many hours they work and we keep a running total. Once you hit 40, everything over that is overtime.
Right, I guess
And it would be
just didn't agree
calculated
with
whatever
that
rate of
being a
pay for the
separate
job that you're
and a
working.
different rate.
So what's,
That's standard calculations for FLSA, it's not rocket science.
Right, I get it, but I just don't agree that it's a different job that should be computed at a different hourly rate,
So you're saying that the care and maintenance of an animal is the same level of responsibility as an officer at a school?
Yeah, because their care and maintenance of the animal affects how they do their
It's
job at the
equipment.
school.
part of your equipment? You could look at it that way. But what's to say that the department, I'm not saying this, chief, but what's to say that the department won't change these officers' work week now to say, all right, from now on, you're a Monday to Thursday employee, 8-hour day, or 9.5-hour day, so you don't reach your 40-hour.
I don't see that happening. I mean, just logistically, why would we do that? We need the dogs here. We're officers here. That just doesn't take
Well,
into
in this-
consideration what you actually do.
In the summers, you don't need the dog on the Fridays because the district's closed on Fridays, so.
But every day that they're handling the dog is paid at an hour and a half. So that even if it's a Friday or Saturday, and see, that goes into that work week problem that you have. So if your care and maintenance of the dog, you're still feeding the dog on Saturday, you're still feeding the dog on Sunday. They're getting that hour and a half on Saturday and an hour and a half on Sunday. So, I mean, any day that they're caring and maintaining that animal, they're getting paid that hour and a half. And whether it's a 7-day work week or they can't have a 5-day work week, the animal has to be fed and cared for every single day.
No, but you could,
Unless you're saying that you don't want them paid on Saturday and Sunday.
I think you know that's not what he said.
I think I do, but I
think?
get different information depending on when we're here, so I just want to make sure it's clear that we're going to pay them for the full 7 days for the care and maintenance of the dog.
correct, but if you change the work week, the 8-hour work week from Monday to Thursday, and not included for them in that group, then you would be avoiding paying them overtime at all. So what's to prevent that from happening?
We like our proposal, I think it goes along with levering, so.
I think your proposal is too high, and we're happy with our proposal. We think, one, your proposal takes into giving them their regular hourly rate for, 30 minutes a day. We're offering an hour and a half at a lower rate, but we're offering it, so I think we're in compliance with levering. Levering doesn't say it has to be 30 minutes per day. Levering said for that officer, it was 30 minutes per day. Our officers, when we spoke to them, said it was about an hour and a half. Now, if you want to discount what the officers told us, because they
Well, if you
polled
want to
them
give
and
them
asked
an
them.
hour and a half at, their regular rate of pay at
Right, well,
overtime.
we're not an endless supply of money either, so, this is our proposal. We can continue to negotiate the rate if you'd like to, but we went and polled the officers, and they said an hour and a half. It's a different job. We don't feel that it's the same job as an officer in the school protecting students. It's care and maintenance of a canine.
Which they use to protect the students.
Well, under that logic, we'd have to pay them when they wash their uniforms
I don't think
or
so.
wash their car, because that's their equipment. They're caring and maintaining for that as well. So that argument doesn't fly for me.
I just want it on record, so if you may state, when would the district's proposal of an hour and a half at the rate of $15 an hour apply?
Every day that they're caring and maintaining the animal.
So that would be an hour and a half, just use $15 an hour if I may. So $22.50 for 365?
The 365, yes, I'm saying the hour and a half, whatever that is at 15, I don't do math for a reason, so.
No, half of that is $22.50. I'm
that's
just,
fine. So if 2250 is for an hour and a half at a rate of 15, yes, it's for 365 days a year.
okay, thank you. Just further, I think it was simpler to say it that way. Thank you.
Okay, appreciate that.
Okay, 20.5, I think is the one thing that we're okay with. The payroll schedule, I mean, I don't know how many people this really affects. This may be something I have to speak to the members more about. So 20.11 Sergeant. This, I think I will have to speak to the reps more about. I know we're not happy with your proposals. Just for example, like having the command staff, Miss Powell and whoever else. I don't even know for sure what new positions are going to be created soon. So we're not comfortable with that for the interview process. And then, as far as years on, with the probation being 18 months, I know that the members aren't happy with that, so. Are you thinking about creating new staff members under the chief? Is that something that's been laid out, or?
I don't think there's been any discussion that I'm aware of about adding civilian positions.
Okay.
And right now, as you know, we have a new superintendent, so anything that may have been planned previously, is subject for discussion with the superintendent again. So anything maybe Dr. Fenoy said, this is how we're going to work, the new superintendent may have a completely different idea.
Okay. Okay, yeah, we really don't have any new language for you right now because we only had, Friday, so we have to meet and talk about all this.
Okay, I appreciate that. Our next bargaining session, I guess, is the 30th. So unless there's anything else, I guess we're done for the day, and I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.